I'm sitting here with Julia Hickman. Julia, thank you so much for being part of the program today.
Hi, Miguel. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, ma'am. For those who aren't familiar with the amazing things you're doing, let them know about yourself.
Sure, yeah. So a little bit about me. I'm a mom of two kids, wife, and I guess my start in the online world was a few years ago, about 3.5 years ago, 3 years ago, I think. I started out as an online fitness coach. I'm such a fitness fanatic. I love health and wellness and inspiring and motivating others to live better lives by taking care of themselves better through movement. And that really led me to, after I had my second child, I had my daughter, to kind of come to a point where I was like, is this really what I want to be doing? Is this what I want to focus on and take to the next level? And I took a little bit of time off and thought about my big picture, my goals, and who I really liked working with. And I realized I really loved working with entrepreneurs and sort of becoming like an intrapreneur, meaning working like in somebody's business without being an employee, being able to bring like strategic ideas and helping the entrepreneur, the CEO, with like the big picture and managing different aspects of the business. So I started my new business just a few months ago, actually. And so one of the things that I specialize is podcasting. So helping entrepreneurs launch and manage their podcasts, so that way they can just sit back, hit record, and I can oversee all the little details that podcasting requires.
Julia, you mentioned you were in one lane and then you pivoted to another and really anchored down on what it is that you want to do. And oftentimes when we talk about podcasting, for example, and sharing your message, one has to pick a lane, so to speak, and really pick a niche, as they say. And what strategies could we provide for those who are thinking about launching a podcast and instead of being broad, need to pick a lane or pick a niche?
Exactly. It's such a great question. And I'm sure people have heard this, or maybe they haven't heard this, but being a generalist doesn't really do you much good, right? Like if you need to go see if you need to go see a doctor and, you have issues with your foot, right? Like you don't want to just go to your regular doctor. You want to go to a foot specialist, right? So that's why you want to become a specialist, because then you really show up as a true like expert, as an authority in your field. And guess what? You can charge more for that. So what I would say to somebody when they're thinking about starting a podcast is to have like that end goal in mind. So don't just think like, oh, you know what? I love talking, so I'm just going to start a podcast. Or, oh, you know what? I do video all the time, so why don't I just do a podcast? Because what could happen is it could become this time-consuming hobby that doesn't really add to your bottom line. And, then you give up and then you stop podcasting and then you're like, oh, I just wasted all that on nothing, right? So have an end goal in mind. And the type of entrepreneurs that I work with are like in the coaching field. So they really have, but their main goal really is to bring revenue through their programs, right? So they're not really focusing on, for example, like, affiliate, or, they're not looking for sponsorships for their podcast. They're looking more to do free podcasting, and they use their podcast sort of as like a funnel into their programs. So have that end goal in mind. Like, what is the purpose? Like, do you want to create an audience with your podcast that you could sell to and, have high ticket clients that you serve through your podcast? So have that end goal in mind, first of all, and then think about, okay, like who are the people that I want to bring to this, podcasting community that I create? Where, like, what messages do I want to like have like your message in mind, your overall message, because it might need to be a little bit different than what you talk about in your live videos. If you're already doing live videos, you might need to tweak it a little bit. And yeah, think about the format that you want. I mean, you could have like Miguel, he brings guests. So you might want to bring guests. You want to bring other experts who cover other areas that you might not touch upon in your expertise. Or maybe you just want to do solo episodes. I follow some podcasts where they do just like coaching, you can like kind of listen in on how they coach someone who's in their program. So you can get very creative when it comes to your podcast. But again, you just have to have that like end goal in mind and really know what you think you are going to be driving your people to. So that way you're not just, recording just to record. And so that it ends up being something that, adds dollars to your bottom line, like I said.
Yeah, I think monetizing for many individuals, monetizing their podcast is like a scary thing, right? You don't want to put a price on it, but at the same time, it's turning that hobby, turning that passion into a profit. And as Pat Flynn says, the riches are in the niches. So as you said, when you anchor down on that message, it becomes a lot more easier to serve people. I know some individuals that have difficulty in hearing their own voice. So a basic fear or a basic thing that may hinder the desire of wanting to do it, right? Kind of getting over their own voice. What are some other fears that you may have seen, or some other things that may stand in the way from someone actually being able to make the step of launching their podcast?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I hear a lot is, like it's just so overwhelming. All the the tech and the editing and the promoting. There's so much that it requires, and yes, that could be time consuming. But again, it's sort of it helps to have like a strategy, right? So being really organized with your time. And if this is something that you're going to do yourself, it's okay, on this, maybe you batch record some episodes, right? So that on this day you batch record your episodes. Depending on how you like to do your schedule, maybe you do your editing right away, or maybe you do your editing on another day. But like having really like these purposeful blocks of time where you focus on whatever task it is that you need to do, or having somebody do it for you. That's like something that I do for clients. So they hand that off to me. But yeah, being really intentional with your time. Otherwise it's overwhelming. Otherwise it's like, okay, I have to record. Oh, I'm supposed to launch, an episode tomorrow, and I don't have time to record today. What am I going to do? So not letting that happen to you by being really organized with how, like, when you're going to record, when you're going to edit, when you're going to create like your promotional pieces. And really sticking to that. And sometimes that's why it helps to also have someone who's helping you with that, because knowing like, oh, I have to get my episode recorded because, my podcast person needs it to do their thing. So that having that like accountability to get your episode done is also really helpful when you have somebody who's helping you with a podcast.
Awesome. Fantastic strategies you've provided here today, Julia. Julia, for those who are listening and they want to get connected with you, they're like, I want to launch my podcast. This is the year. How could they get connected with you?
Yeah, so they could reach me on Facebook. Facebook is a wonderful place to reach out to me. So they can look me up, Julia Hickman. I have a Facebook page. Facebook.com/Julia Hickman and Co. And also my website is juliamhickman.com.
Thank you so much for being part of the program today, Julia.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you so much for having me.